So hello, you wonderful citizen of the internet, and welcome to a bit of a Q&A waffle that's going to be full of some slightly spooky things and some other things as well. So what I will do, as always, is leave the timestamps and the questions in the drop-down box, so you can jump over anything that just gets weird or tangential or boring, and it probably will, because whenever I talk about spooky things, it's one of my favourite subjects, and I don't get to talk about it very often, so it's probably going to turn into a very long, very tedious waffle. Also, I apologise if I keep sticking my fingers in my ears. I'm playing with these new headphones that like boop, 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 boop. Whenever I make a noise, they light up red and it's quite exciting. But this one is too big for my I seem to have different sized ear holes and this one keeps falling out of my ear. So, yeah, I'm going to keep just sticking my fingers in my ears all the time. And I apologise if that's very annoying. Also, if I'm completely unrecognisable, I've just discovered tattoo brows. You know, there's like temporary tattoo brows. Yes, it did take me about 5 brows to get them on my face, even half matching. But they're pretty fucking cool. I'm very excited. But anyway, jumping into this Q&A, this is going to be a clusterfuck. This is take 2 already, by the way, because I just went on such a tangent. I was like, you know what, let's just fuck this off and start again. So this is take 2 of trying not to waffle too much. But anyway, I've done a stupid thing and I forgot to write down the name of the person who gave me the majority of these amazing questions, because someone just brilliant questions, thousands of them, brilliant questions. So I will leave your name in the drop down box with your questions, because you do deserve some credit, but I'm not going to mangle the pronunciation of your name because I can't remember what it is, because I didn't write it down, because I got so excited by the questions I forgot to do, like, you know, the polite, civilized, decent thing and write down your name. So yeah, the first question was, what's the spookiest thing you've ever seen? And somebody else also asked about the first time I felt a ghost's presence and how to do so, which is interesting because that was immediately the thing that came to mind when it was like, what's the spookiest thing you've ever seen? My immediate thought was, I don't tend to see many spooky things, but I do tend to feel quite a lot of spooky things. So to explain, because I haven't talked about anything spooky in a number of years for certain reasons. Those reasons largely being that I have pulled back considerably from everything to do with spirits and spookiness. But there was a period of my life that, largely regrettable period of my life, where I was very much into inviting spiritual presences into the into my life, and I mean, yes, I would say it was a regrettable period of my life. It made me want to die. Fuck it. This is essentially the thing I have been on and off bitching about. When I have said, my life has been terrible. My life has been unbelievably, ungodly terrible for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you know, going up and increasing as time went by. My life has been ungodly for the past 4 years. It's been worse than high school. That was because of letting spiritual entities into my life, which is why I have pulled back considerably from A, having anything to do with that stuff, and B, talking about it, because I don't want to set anyone else off on a journey of discovery towards inviting spirits into their life, really. And I thought I would just jump in here and add a bit more of a waffle, because I do still get asked quite a bit about the spiritual stuff and about, you know, what is this 4 years of spiritual hell you've been through, because you were really enthusiastic about those spirits years ago and then you kind of stopped talking about them, and what went so very wrong. Yeah, it's become something that I don't talk about a huge amount because of coming to the realization that talking about spiritual experiences publicly or at all, honestly, is pretty stupid and pretty pointless. Because the fact is, most people are not having these experiences. If you don't seek out these experiences and put yourself in their path, you're very unlikely to experience them. And that's a good thing. But obviously it means that if you are someone who has these rare, weird experiences and you talk about them, most people are just going to think you are completely batshit crazy, and that is completely understandable, because that's exactly what I thought when I first heard about this kind of stuff. And ironically, it was my very cynicism that got me into trouble, because I stumbled across this stuff late at night, browsing the internet, and I thought, this is the funniest fucking thing I've ever heard. Oh my God, this is hilariously stupid. So I was writing a blog post taking the piss out of all of it. So I was browsing to get more ammo, because, you know, I was just like, this is so funny. And then I came across something that I thought was beautiful. I thought this thing is just really pretty. Obviously, there's nothing magical about it because that's just bullshit and it's crazy. But this is beautiful. It's really pretty. I kind of want it. I'm going to have it. And I got lucky, actually, with that first object. Or did I? Did I? Because if that first object had have given me like a short, sharp shock and been something bad, I would have gone, okay, wow, this is real, but it's scary. I don't want anything to do with it. And maybe there would have been a few weeks of horror while I got rid of the thing and banished it and whatever. But ultimately it would have been over. Whereas I had the most beautiful, incredible experience with this first thing that I bought. And so the full force of autism and ADHD kicked in and I was hyper focused. I was special interested on this stuff and really threw myself into it with both feet and got so entangled in it that getting out, really has taken 4 years. Yeah. So I don't talk about it much because it's like, is it really worth having everyone just think you're completely batshit crazy to have a tiny handful of people know your truth? And sometimes, yeah, it is. Sometimes those vital people really keep you sane, because one of the worst things about having trouble with some kind of spirit that you're having long-term trouble with is how isolated it makes you. Because even if you're having a good time with spirit stuff, who do you talk to about it? It cuts a rift between you and the human race. And then if it goes wrong, you are so alone. You have never been more alone in your life. And the people out there who say they're going to help you, who claim to be psychics and claim to have all these powers and this experience, blah, 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 99.9% of them are complete bullshit artists and just want to separate you from your money. They know less about this stuff than you do. They are less psychic than you are. If you're having spiritual problems, I guarantee you are probably more psychic than the majority of these people who claim they are able to help you. And the people who are good at this stuff, and there are people out there who are great at this stuff, who are knowledgeable and all of that, but they are very busy and they don't have all the time in the world. And even they can be fooled by these things. Even they are not 100% accurate, because just think about what you're dealing with when it comes to unpleasant spirits. This is going to sound quite nuts, but there we go. But just think for a minute about narcissism and sociopathy and how fucked in the head you can get by being in a relationship or living with someone who is a narcissist or a sociopath. And these are people who are just human beings who've been on the planet for 20, 30, 40 years, right? That's all the life experience they have. So, okay, imagine that same situation. You're living with someone that has this personality type, except that person is an entity that has been around the earth for multiple lifetimes, maybe hundreds of years, fucking people over, getting more advanced, more experienced, more knowledgeable. It knows everything about you. And it doesn't care. It has, it's far surpassed any realm of giving a shit about human beings apart from what benefits itself. And it's like AI, and it's like our terror of AI and the fact that these things are going to get more intelligent than us soon, and what the fuck do we do then? And the same can be said for spirits. These things, they have abilities beyond what we do. They've lived way longer, or, experienced way longer than we have. Of course, you are not going to be infallible when it comes to dealing with these things. Whoever you are and however experienced you think you are, you can still be tricked and still be fucked over. And even after 4 years, when I found the person who was finally able to help me out of all this shit, even they were not 100% accurate, and even they were taken in by one or two of the entities that were particularly malicious and experienced at putting off something good. So what I think I'm going to do regarding all of this stuff anyway is I'm going to write a storytime chapter about the last 4 years and everything. However, I don't think this will be YouTube fodder, because I just can't, I just don't see the point. It's just stupid. Putting it out on YouTube and just having the whole world think I'm mad to have a handful of people get it. It's just not point. There's no point. So I might put it on Patreon, or it might just be exercise of personal catharsis. I don't know. But I'll let you know. I'll let you know on Instagram when I've written this thing and recorded it, and what I'm going to do with it. I don't know. I'll let you know. But it might be interesting also to kind of make a bit of a video about just some pro tips at this point on what to do if you do find yourself in some kind of really shitty situation with with spirits and stuff, maybe that will come along too. But yeah, kind of cliff notes on the last 4 years, really. And the only thing I want to say about it here, trigger warning here for unaliving and general dark shit. So if you want to skip over the unaliving dark shit stuff, check the drop down box. I'll put a timestamp. But basically, the past 4 years have been so bleak. It has been constantly on the verge of unaliving. However, something very beautiful has come out of all of this in the form of a new book, which is, all being well, going to come out in the middle of January. So there will be a new book for you to read. It is not volume 2 of the Nostalgia Project, though, I'm afraid, because that has fallen off the tracks because of this 4 years. Because how do you finish a story about your life when your life is so much in the balance and so much in, like, am I going to unalive? Am I going to stay alive? I don't know. Do you give it a happy ending? Do you give it a sad ending? Do you and you don't want to talk about most of it anyway. Like, how do you end that book? So that is kind of on pause at the moment. And I hope in the next kind of few months to a year, when things hopefully kind of straighten out a little bit more, maybe I will know what to do with the ending of volume 2 and I can give you it. But the book I am going to be giving you, it's not ghostly, it's not spooky. It's kind of revolves around neurodiversity and battles with the mental health system to be given the treatment you need and to be taken seriously and understood as a neurodivergent person. And why I wrote all of this and why I'm rambling about this at this point, because it's quite far from the subject, or it seems it, is that I wrote this book for a rather dark purpose. I wrote it in last year, the summer, when I had reached the bottom of my checklist of things to stay alive for. I had crossed off every single thing that I thought was going to change the situation and improve my life, and there was nothing left. And it was like, well, I tried for 3 fucking years, and I'm still here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be here last year. I didn't want to be here the year before. I'm ready to go. So what do I do when I'm ready to go? Well, I'm an Aries and a loudmouth and hyperverbal, so I was never going to go out quietly, was I? I was never just going to slip away and it was like, oh no, look, there's an obituary, this person's dead. No, I wanted to say my piece, so because that's who I am. So I wrote this fucking book to be my public goodbye. I was going to have it as a scheduled posthumous release. So I got it all ready. I did the cover myself and everything, and I was ready to schedule this thing for upload, get off the planet, and it would pop up a few days later, and that would be my public goodbye. That was the plan. But ironically, I think writing this thing actually kept me alive, because also I'm a bit of a perfectionist about my writing, and particularly when it's the last thing you're ever going to say on earth. Fuck me, you want to get that right, yeah? So I polished it and got it right, and it kept me going. And then obviously I ended up in this awkward position now where it's like, well, the thing that was making me want to die has, pretty much gone out of my life. I mean, the spirit stuff is out of my life now, but when you've dealt with that shit for 4 years, man, longer than university, almost as long as high school, you've dealt with that shit. Obviously, there's bucket loads of trauma that you're left with, but also there's going to be things that it's done to your life and your world that are such insurmountable problems. I don't even fucking know what to do about any of it. I'm not going to get into all of it here, but yeah, so things are not perfect, but there is enough clarity back that it's like, okay, so I probably don't want to unalive. Unfortunately, though, I've got this book that I love and I really want to put it out there, but it's kind of my public goodbye. What do I do with it? The answer is grow some balls and publish it anyway. Because although it is fiction, there is a painfully large dollop of me in this book, and it is going to be the most personal thing I've ever published. So that's terrifying. Publishing anything book-wise is terrifying, but this is going to be terrifying to publish. Nonetheless, I think there's a lot of shit in there that needs saying. And honestly, I think the stuff that you are going to put in your unaliving note is probably the stuff that you need to say to the people on Earth while you're still alive the most vitally, and you're just too afraid to say it while you're still there. It's all the secrets of your heart that possibly could have kept you alive if you just said it to the people around you. That's kind of what I've kind of learned about unaliving and unaliving notes, having written so many of them at this point. So I do think this book could be helpful to people, you know, myself and others. So yeah, it will be coming in January. It's not really, well, yeah, it's quite a bleak book, but I think it's quite an enjoyable read too. It's quite fiery. I quite like it. I do think it's one of the best things I've ever written. And once I've got it out there, off my plate, into the world, I can go back to finishing off the second volume of the Nostalgia Project. And also, more excitingly for me, I can get back to my vampire novel, which after 11 years is finally coming together in a shape that I am just loving so much. So I can't wait to get done with final edits on this thing and get back to my vampires. So hopefully this is going to be 2024. You know, hopefully if I don't kick the bucket or anything, it's going to be a year of a lot of writing and a lot of getting writing out there that has been taking far too long to finish. So that's quite cool. And yeah, so with all of that really tangential waffled, back to the video, I guess. And yeah, I will keep you updated on this storytime chapter about the ghosts and all the awfulness. So yeah, I'll let you know on Instagram what the fuck I decide to do with that. So with that said, back to the video and the spooky experiences that are largely a lot more lighthearted than all of this rather dark waffle. So thanks for tolerating this weird little intermission. I know I did get some people into it, and I just hope to God you know, went about things with more caution than I did and had a better experience than I did, which would not be hard. But I mean, it's tough because the reason I got so enthusiastic about it in the first place was because I had so many, like truly some of the best experiences I've ever had in my life have also come from spirits. And that's shit, because a lot of that is not in my life anymore, and a lot of those spirits are not in my life anymore. And that makes me sad sometimes, but also there was nothing else that could be done. However, if you do start letting spirits into your life and realizing the capacity you have to feel or see or hear, because everyone is different, spirit presences and all of that, it is something that I don't think is a door you can ever fully close. So that's another reason to be cautious, is once you kind of get into it, that's it, you're into it. I do also think that if you have any kind of spirit around you that you are in communication with and that has become a part of your life, I do think it draws in more spirits, and some of them are going to be good, but some of them are not going to be good. Like if you think people can be fucking awful, spirits, like if you're human, right, which you are, I imagine, spirits can come off like people with superpowers. So if you think people can be dickheads, the level to which spirits can be dickheads is, because it's not even going to be just in your waking life. One of the spookiest thing I have ever seen on my list, the spookiest thing that I've ever seen with my eyes, did come in the form of a fucking horrible dream at the beginning of the point that I had rather accidentally and very unfortunately let very negative entities into my life. And I have never been someone who had nightmares, really. Like I've had like a scattering of nightmares throughout my life, but I had endless stupid nightmares with these things in my life. And the one that really sticks with me, because it was the most horrifying, was being in this kind of semi-darkened room. Somehow suddenly there was like a loved one's decapitated head, like decaying, flattened. Like if you've ever had a pet that's died, I don't know why I'm laughing. If you've ever had a pet that's died, and you know, if you've found them in the morning, or you found them like under a hedge a few days later, and they're like deflated, and like everything's just like sunken around the bones, and you don't really recognize them, and you're like, is this my pet though? Like it's got the same markings, and I think this is my pet, but it's not my pet. And it's like, well, it's not, because what made it your pet has kind of gone. This is just its empty, sagging vessel. So it was like that with a loved one's decapitated head on a stake, rotating to face me with its milky eyes. So it was not only just, my God, dead thing, creepy, but it was also it was very multi-layered. It was very multi-layered because of the loved one they had chosen. It was a very multi-layered horror, that dream. So yeah, that I can't remember what I was saying before I got onto this, but fuck it. That was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. But yeah, most of the things for me that are spooky tend to be things that I feel. And yeah, the first thing on my list was the first time I felt like a room just go icy, icy, icy cold with the spirit's presence. And it's funny because like I'd never felt that before, even though I'd had spirits around before and I'd felt other things from them. It was more of a tingly feeling than the room just plummeting into icy cold. And it's yeah, the first time you feel that, it's really quite shit scary. Even if you know why it's happening and you're like, oh, okay, this is why, this is who. It's a scary feeling. And my response was to try and chase that spirit off with a block of burning sage, which has never worked for me. Burning sage has never worked for me. And I've also heard from like more than one practitioner at this point that white people probably shouldn't burn sage because of it being kind of a native herb or like a herb that's sacred to Native Americans. If you're a white person trying to chase off spirits with this culturally appropriated herb, like it's probably not going to go super well for you, right? Particularly not if you are actually in America and if the spirit you're dealing with may be the spirit of a Native American and you're trying to chase it, or it might just go through the roof for you, what's going on. So I've been recommended dragon's blood incense instead as a kind of banishing thing, and I have had marginally better luck with that, so that might be something to pass on. But yeah, spooky on more spooky things that I've seen. This was not an unpleasant thing. This was a really fucking cool thing. But the first time I ever really interacted with spirits, this was prior to feeling the very cold thing. This was, and it looks like I'm not going to talk about that experience actually, because I just started trying to talk about it and something is so overwhelmingly emotional in this room, I am going to bawl my eyes out if I try and talk any more about this experience. So moving on. In fact, this room is getting very cold right now. And I don't quite know why. So, okay, I'm going to talk about something that was like a spooky experience, but I don't think this had anything to do with spirits, or it didn't have anything to do with any spirits that I was familiar with. It remains inexplicable to me, this experience. I call this the Inception dream. You know, if you've ever seen the movie Inception, it's like a dream within a dream within a dream. I once had a dream that was like the movie Inception on copious amounts of LSD, and parts of this dream were some of the spookiest shit I've ever experienced. And it was exhausting. This dream felt like it went on for about 3 days. And it didn't. Like I woke up and it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd been dreaming for a fairly short time, but it felt like days. This dream started out with this scene whereby someone was trying to push me down this wishing well. Someone was trying to sacrifice me and shove me down a wishing well. And I was like, no, fuck off. I'm not going down the wishing well. I'm not being a sacrifice. No. So I refused. And because of this refusal, I was somehow sucked into this weird dreamscape. The bit that was really spooky was I'd already been immersed in this dream for a while, and I kept being pulled in and out of what I thought was reality. So I'd have like a weird fucking time in this dream, and then I'd wake up in my room, only certain bits of the furniture had moved. I was like, this was a wild dream, I've got to remember this. So I'd write it down, and then the words would turn into crumbs of tobacco and fall off the page. At which point I was like, what the fuck? Oh, the dream, my refusal to go down the wishing well is still affecting reality. I am somehow cursed. Even my reality is cursed. And then I would be sucked back into the dreamscape. At one point in this weird dream, I woke up in bed, except this time the bed wasn't my bed. And I was in the middle of someone's wedding. And it was very detailed. You know, it was this big frothy white wedding. It was this huge white hall. And I've also had people say they've had similar experiences when they've been lucid in a dream and they've said to someone, I know I'm dreaming, or like, you're in my dream, or they've revealed in some way that they know they're dreaming. And suddenly everyone turns to look. It's like an Inception when you fuck up what's going on too much. Everyone turns to look at you, and suddenly you're the enemy and you're being attacked on all sides, and it's terrifying. It was like that in this wedding. I just woken up in this bed in the middle of this wedding. Everyone obviously knew I was dreaming because I was in a bed, and I didn't belong there. And I had one ally in this moment, which was the woman at this table next to me. She knew I shouldn't be there, and she knew I had to get out of there. So I had to drink her blood to get out of the dream. And I can't remember what she did, if she took like a steak knife off the table. I think she took a steak knife off the table and like pricked herself on it in some way. And the blood tasted like really very, very real for being a dream. And I tasted her blood, and then I was out of this weird wedding scenario and into another bit of the dream. But it went on, and I kept waking up in my room, except things were weird and it wasn't quite reality. And I did genuinely begin to feel the dreamscape has swallowed my reality, and I'm never going to find my way back to true reality again. That was quite scary. And it like I say, it felt like 3 days of in and out and in and out and in and out of reality, which is nothing compared to some of the things I've heard on TikTok where people have said, and I've heard like about 3 people now with stories like this, where they've said, I went to bed one random night in like 1996, went to bed, and they will say that they either woke up in a different reality that went on for years, or their life continued for years, and then they woke up back at the point they'd gone to bed. And some people have been in dreams for like 40 years. They've lived out like an entire lifetime. They've had children, they've had grandchildren, and then they've woken up back in. Like, I'm like, do I believe this? I don't know. People will tell some whack-ass stories to get famous. So I don't know. I don't know how real or how possible that is, but it's quite a scary thought. It is quite a scary thought to just think like, what the fuck? Particularly the ones where it is like this isn't even my experiences now, but I'm so enthusiastic about them. Where it's like a smooth continuation of your life, and you just think you're in reality, and then boom, you wake up and you're 12 again. Like, can you imagine? Like, what the I'd be pissed. I would be so pissed if all of this was like just a rehearsal and I had to do it all over again for real. I'm pissed. I would not be impressed. So I guess I'm just going to give you one more spooky thing, which is actually, I think this is quite a cute thing rather than a spooky thing. And then I will move on from the spooky things, because there is a weird feeling against my back right now, and it's very cold in this room, and it's all getting a bit weird. So the thing that some people might see as spooky, but I thought was quite cute. I was wearing this mood bracelet once, and I was really disappointed by this mood bracelet because it was tight to my skin right here. And the problem with that is that your skin right there doesn't really change temperature, so it's always blue. It always stays blue, this mood ring, or this mood bracelet rather. And I was like, well, that's boring. You know, you buy it because you want to see it change color. It never changes color. I'd been thinking about this, and kind of, all my thoughts come out of my mouth. I talk constantly about my thoughts, and it's very boring to everyone around me, even if they're a spirit, probably. And I was sitting here, actually. I was sitting here turned the other way, and I felt this cold around me, as I would quite frequently at that point, because I did have quite a lot of spiritual activity in my room. And something drew my attention to my mood bracelet, and it started rapidly changing color. And it was getting colder and colder and colder, except I couldn't feel the mood bracelet getting colder. It was just changing color, and it went all the way from blue. And if you know anything about mood rings, you know they go kind of blue is warm, and they get greener and greener and greener, and then they go kind of browny black when they're really cold. And this mood bracelet went all the way through green to like hazily brown, and it was on my arm. And it's like, that shouldn't have been possible, because my arm didn't feel cold. I wasn't dunking it in a bucket of ice water or anything, but it changed color. And this spirit just randomly changed my mood ring's color because he knew it would be kind of entertaining to me. And I thought that was really sweet. And I was like, I never asked him whether, you know, would you mind like doing this in front of someone sometime? You know, next time I come up against someone who's like, you're batshit, aren't you? Can you just pop up and just do the mood bracelet thing and just be like, look, watch this? Because that would be kind of helpful. But you don't want to seem rude, you know. You don't want to request people do these kind of party tricks for you, these weird parlor tricks, just just so that people don't think you're mad. Anyway, fucking moving on from the spooky stuff. The next question I was asked was, does anything give you flashbacks to old friends? And again, I had to pretty much make a list of things because many, many, many things flash me back to old friends. And the first one on my list was the song Military Fashion Show by And One, which always flashes me back to Matt, particularly my ex. If you've heard the Nostalgia Project, you will know of Matt. But particularly Matt and Gray getting ready at Gray's house to go out clubbing. Military Fashion Show, for some reason, that is like, we listen to so many songs, but that song is the one that captures that memory to me in my brain. The other thing that takes me back to a similar place in time is the smell of my old Anubis perfume by B Pal. It takes me straight back to Gray's place. The first time I went there on a date with Matt, we were going to get ready, we were going to go clubbing. Nobody knew at this point that I had like a bit of a filthy speed habit, intravenous speed habit. So I'd gone there with these preloaded, like really bad, I did really stupid. I'm gone there with these preloaded syringes of speed, only I'd forgotten to bring a tourniquet with me. And all of this vividly, all of this is captured in Anubis. Whenever I smell Anubis, I remember all of this. I remember like surreptitiously kind of pinching one of Matt's neckties, because he had a thing for like going out clubbing kind of topless with a tie on, like a stripper, and it was a good look. So I pinched one of his neckties, and I remember going down into Gray's bathroom to do this speed, and his bathroom was like in a state of complete disrepair. It needed builders to come into it. There was like wood, there was like nails poking up everywhere. So the smell of wood and nails also takes me back to this. I remember being really anxious, the way you are when you're always shooting speed. Like you get this weird like anticipation anxiety beforehand. And I remember that like feeling of like, I'm going to do the speed and I want to do the speed, but it's also making me really anxious. And yes, other things, songs like, God, there's a lot of, there's so many songs that take me back to Ash and various eras with Ash. 9 Inch Nails, We're in This Together Now makes me think of when we would like borrow his mum's silver sports car and kind of just race around the countryside, and it was all very ill-advised and stupid, but quite fun. God, what other songs? Closer by 9 Inch Nails also takes me back to Ash and the awkwardness of teenage sex when something like Closer comes on, when you're like barely more than a virgin and a song like Closer comes on, and if you don't know Closer, it's like I wanna fuck you like an animal. And if you're actually in the middle of coitus with someone and you're not very sexually experienced, I'm sorry, but you can't get down to I wanna fuck you from the inside. You can't. No, it's too much. And so we would just like look at each other and laugh because it was so fucking awkward. Like another one of my B pals that takes me back, and it's weird because this is a new perfume, but for some reason it smells like memories, and that's B pal's Pumpkin Doob perfume. So it's like a weed and pumpkin spice smell, but to me it smells like Christmas spices and blunt rolling papers, which takes me back to so many times with Ash and his friend Jack as well, when it would be Christmas and we would have like our traditional getting stoned before Christmas thing, and that was always such a nice time, particularly when we got snowed in. One time we got snowed in for like 3 days, and that was lovely, because that was when he was dating Nia, who was rather abusive, very fucking abusive, and none of us were allowed to be there. Nia disapproved of Jack and really disapproved of me, so we weren't supposed to be there. But she was away visiting her family in Germany. So we'd been like allowed round while she wasn't there. And then fate intervened and was like, I'm going to snow you in. You're going to have to stay there for 3 days. And it was great. It was really good. Fortunately, I brought enough medication with me, because it could have been hellish otherwise. But I had enough medication with me, and we were snowed in for like 3 days, and it was great. And pumpkin doob smells like that to me. It smells like Christmas and weed, and that makes me think of ash, and kind of makes me sad. Like I don't really have any stoner friends at the moment. I've like got some really nice friends who've kind of not come into my life, but become closer in my life in the last like 2 years, I guess. So that's really nice, but I don't have any stoner friends at the moment, which is sad. I don't even know where you meet stoners in this country at my age. Like I don't know how you do it, because it's not like we have dispensaries. It's not like we have coffee shops like in Amsterdam. It's like where do you fucking meet the stoners? And I've never had particularly good kind of radar for stoners. Like I've got great junkie-dar. I could probably score like things that you really don't want to score. I could probably pick those up in any city around the world, like, in the space of an hour. But weed, for some reason, I can't just zone in on someone who's a stoner unless they literally stink of weed. That is the only way that I'm like, oh, you've got something nice. Do I like you? Are you a nice sort of person? Should we do this together? I've got no radar for that stuff. I'm blaming autism for that. Anyway, that was a real fucking tangent. But yeah, flashbacks to old friends. I guess the final thing on my list is dance music, particularly kind of like 90s to 2000s hardcore. If you're driving and the sun is out and you're listening to that music, you are instantly flashback so hard to being a little 20-year-old raver, and you will find yourself thinking, I wonder if I could take another ecstasy pill at my age with my health issues, and would it kill me? I don't know. Maybe I don't even care, because the memories are like so real. You're like, I should try this. Unfortunately, by the time you get home and the music stops, you're like, it's not worth it. So the next question, I have shortened this on my scribbles, so I might be like felching the wording of this question, but how to do traditional goth makeup without being a copycat, basically, which I thought was a tough question, because people do manage to make copycat looks look very cool. Like the reason that trad goth makeup is such a big cliche is because it's such a cool look. People are still doing it in the cliched way. And I think it does look really cool particularly if you're the only one in your town or in your friendship group who has that aesthetic. It can look amazing and it can look very unique. It's the minute you go to a goth festival, or the minute that your friends also go, hey, I'm going to do the trad thing, and then I literally can't tell those people apart. I cannot. Because goth makeup, like trad goth makeup particularly, it is literally like a masquerade mask, isn't it? It's like you're masking your features. Particularly when people do like the spiky lips as well. So even the lower part of their face is distorted and made into a mask-like thing. And they've got the big hair. And I can't, put those people in a line. You can't tell them apart. Which maybe that's just my facial recognition issues. Maybe other people can tell them apart. I don't know. But I find it kind of, I can't tell you apart. So my kind of response to that, and I guess everyone is different. But I think mixed influences is always the way to create something kind of more unique, but without kind of straying away from being true to yourself. Because I don't really think that anyone, sorry, I'm semi-reading my rambles here because I had such a ramble about it. I don't think many people are really like purebred goths as in their interests. I don't think many people are like, oh, I only listen to goth music and I only do goth stuff and this is all I'm into. I don't think you get many people like that. Like everyone is into something, whether it's like punk, whether it's black metal, whether it's hair metal, whether it's like new metal is such a big thing that crosses over with goth these days. Probably was back when I was younger, but new metal was still like a new thing and people were like, oh, new metal, oh, it's shit, it's like pop music, it's like pop metal, it's shit. Whereas now it's become this it's like its roots have grown deeper and it's like, oh, new metal, you have to be quite respectful and all of that about it. Or like 80s pop, like whatever it is, whether it's like Taylor Swift or something, whatever your other interests apart from goth are, if you mingle those stylistic influences, I think you're going to create something really cool and really new. And I think that's what everyone who is like a stylistic icon, whether it's like David Bowie, whether it's Susie Sue, whether it's whoever, anyone who's a bit of a stylistic icon, I think they've taken they've taken random influences that they're into and they've mingled them into something completely new, and that is what creates something cool that isn't like a copycat cliche that where you can't tell them apart from someone else. Maybe, I don't know. And another question was, oh God, wow, this is a big ramble by me, but thoughts on the rise of alternative subculture. I think I might just read this one because it's quite a long one. So I said, I guess for people a decade or so younger than me, this alternative scene, alternative aesthetic popularity is scary and new, like outsiders invading your thing. But I don't really think anything about it for myself because it's exactly the same as the wave I rode in on in the late 90s when Buffy and Charmed and Anne Rice books were big, along with Marilyn Manson being all over the TV and news. It's really nice to see alternative stuff becoming so popular again, except it's a weird one this time. Back in the 2000s, you saw the roaming packs of goths everywhere, whereas now it seems to just be very online, lots of online alternative people, but barely a ripple in the real world. Is that just where I live? Is that, because you don't, although you see so many out people online, you go out, it's like, where the fuck are they? Like you see like the occasional person, but you don't really see like whole packs of them. And even if you see someone with like crazy hair or something, you don't really see anyone very, very, very dressed up the way it used to be, which is kind of odd because you see that all over the internet. So yeah, there's no new club nights springing up with all of this popularity. So the benefit is kind of minimal. As far as the actual alternative scenes go, it's all really been co-opted by fast fashion brands, and they're the only ones profiting from it this time around, rather than DJs and bands and clubs and gothic shops being able to surf that wave too, which is a little bit depressing. Ultimately, what goes up will come down, though, so don't get too used to this alternative scene popularity, and don't hate it too hard either, because you will miss it when it fucks off and leaves you looking stylistically dated the way emo does now. That may very well happen to this kind of e-girl goth crossover style that you see so much currently with the nose chains and like the blusher, and I'm trying to think what else is kind of a big cliche of at the moment. I guess little nose highlights, things like that. I'm like, is it going to become like a perpetual part of kind of longer running subcultures like goth and punk that have been around for a long time and seem to be quite constant? Or is it going to be like emo, where you see the occasional person online who still does the emo thing hardcore or the scene thing hardcore, but in general it's like, oh my god, that's so dated, like who does that anymore? And I'm like, I really hope that this wave of popularity right now is not going to drag the whole goth scene down into like, oh, who does that anymore in like another 10 years, because it could do, it really could do, which would suck for me, who's had goth around all their life and has always thought, oh, goth will always be around, and it's always been around, it always will be around. And it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe this burst of popularity will be what drags it down and kills it. Who knows? Not that it's not already dying by itself anyway in terms of club nights, but who knows? There was something else I was going to say. I can't remember what the fuck it was. Don't hate the popularity of the alternative scene too much, because I think in the 90s and the 2000s, people on the goth scene did hate how popular like the alternative scene was getting. And there was so much like inter kind of alternative scene arguing with like the new metal kiddies. Oh, it's not really real metal, or like the more goths. They're not really goths. There was so much of this bickering. And actually, when you look back on it now, it's like, oh, but it was so cool because there were so many alternative people everywhere, and you forget about the fact that actually all these people were sniping at each other for being slightly different and all of this. And I think it'll be the same with this kind of generation of alt scene popularity, that it's going to be like in another 10 or so years when it's not popular and when everyone's wandering around wearing colours again, there's no gothy people even online. I think it's going to be like, oh, I really missed that when you could look online, there were like gothy people everywhere, and people will forget that actually there was so much sniping and gatekeeping and yada yada. Anyway, the last question I wanted to answer was, somebody asked me about an innocent teen first time experience, and I think I've talked about a lot of my first time experiences, and most of them weren't very innocent. But the thing that did pop to my mind for innocent first time teen experiences was a shop in, I don't know whether this shop existed in the US as well, or maybe still does, I don't know. But a shop called Tammy Girl. I remember the first time I went into Tammy Girl, and it was like so 90s cool. It was like my cousin, who was like super cool, used to shop at Tammy Girl, And so I'd got my mom to take me to like our local branch of Tammy Girl because I wanted to get a hat exactly the same as my cousin's hat. And I did actually find the hat. It was velvet, and it was like black velvet, but with different colours popping through the velvet. And it was like this bucket hat thing. I had that hat for so many years and I got rid of it. And I'm so gutted I did because it was gorgeous. And I've still got this thing somewhere. I bought this glow-in-the-dark necklace with a dolphin in the middle. It was all very, very 90s. But I remember writing in my Pocahontas diary when I got home that like, oh, Tammy Girl is such a cool place to be. There's like no parents and no boys and no problem, and it's really cool. And it just sounds so lame. But I loved it in that shop. It was yeah, you know, because your parents were like, oh, this is too teenage for me. I'm gonna go and do something boring. I'm gonna go to like M&S or BHS or Debenhams or something. Oh, fucking hell, all these names that like barely exist or don't exist anymore. So you know, your parents would fuck off. There was no like boys clothing in Tammy Girl, obviously Tammy Girl. So it was all girls and it was all very chill. And you could it was the one place. Oh God, yeah, because I think this was. I must have been about 11 or 12 because I went through puberty really fucking early. So I was like convinced, even though my boobs were only about maybe a B cup at the biggest, I was convinced I had double D tits because I was so young for them to come in. It was like, what the fuck is this? Like, there must be a double D. And it was only when I first measured myself from like a Sugar magazine article on how to measure yourself that I was like, what? A cup? Are you kidding? How big are double D's then? Because these are huge, right? And I was so self-conscious about having boobs in every situation for certain reasons, largely relating to boomers commenting on my tits, even though I was 11 or 12. Way. So I was really self-conscious about having boobs. But I remember even like around my best friend at the time, my best friend at primary school, I remember going to probably Topshop maybe and trying on clothes. And I remember trying on this clingy, like midriffy top and seeing like curves in it for the first time. And I wouldn't come out of the fucking changing room. I would not. Even for just to see my friend, I was like, no. I remember when I came out and she tried things on and she was like still flat as a pancake. And I was like, that doesn't look so normal, but it looks like more comfortable than what I have. But anyway, when I was in Tammy Girl on my own, I was like, this is okay. And I don't have to feel weird about my body in this scenario. So that was really nice. So that's my memory of Tammy Girl. And I'm sad that they don't exist anymore. I thrifted a pair of velvet trousers recently that, I think they're oh God, what was the adult version of Tammy Girl called? Was it just Tammy or something? Because I got some trousers, yeah, and they've got Tammy in the label or something. I was like, oh my God, these are amazing. And they do look quite 90s. So I must wear them at some point. Anyway, this is a fucking, this is a giant waffle. So I guess I'm going to shut up and fuck off now. This room still feels weird, dude. There is still weird fucking energy floating around this room. So I apologize if this is a weird sort of jittery video because there's a weird vibe in this room. Yeah. But thank you for the questions. Person whose name I didn't write down, but whose name I will put in the thing. I'm so sorry for not writing down your name and then mangling it out loud. But yes, if you have further questions about anything, please drop them below because I do like doing Q&As. It's quite nice to just waffle about random shit without having to try and get my words in a particularly coherent order and all of that. It's quite nice, even when the room is freezing cold and there's weird vibes zipping around like fireworks, and I'm rather afraid that my phone is going to glitch and eat this video in some kind of weird way. We will see. But anyway, thank you for listening. I'm going to shut up and go away now. So over and out. Bye-bye.